Welcome back to Driven for Health, the podcast for men over 40, focusing on nutrition, fitness, flat stomachs, lose stubborn belly fat, and perform in multiple areas, especially showing up as a great husband, father, partner, and be there for themselves. I'm Coach Brian Prana. I've been helping busy, driven guys for the last 2 decades find balance between all these areas of life and build the body they're excited about. And today we're continuing to dive deeper into the strength pyramid, a science-based framework that simplifies how to train for real, lasting results. If you've been following along, the last 2 episodes, 17 for adherence, episode 18 for volume, intensity, frequency, then we're just going to keep moving forward. Adherence is the foundation of every successful program. Then volume, intensity, frequency, how to figure out what the proper workload and recovery rate is for you to see consistent growth. We're moving into the next critical layer, which is progression. Progression and overload are the basic principles of getting stronger, which is important to understand when we're doing exercise. This is where you take all the structure, the planning, the effort, and put it into practice. Progression is what turns your training from just exercise into body transformation results. When you look in the mirror with your shirt off, you see muscle, you see physical body changes, and you're really excited about it. Let's break it down so you know exactly how to move from where you're at now, maybe not feeling so great with your body, or maybe you are, and this is just an easier way to dial it in to understand exercise a little bit better. Wherever you're at on the spectrum, happy to help you continue moving forward. We want stronger, leaner, more capable, functional. Ultimately, we want you to make you harder to kill and die when you get older, so you're functionally fit and live a long, healthy life. Let's go through the pyramid recap. With the strength pyramid, we have a couple layers. Adherence 1, volume, intensity, frequency 2, progression is layer 3, covering today. Next episode is exercise selection, followed by rest periods, and then tempo. Everything sits inside periodization, though, which is important, which is the plan for how all of these variables change over time to produce results. We'll certainly continue to cover periodization and talk about it even more in depth in the future, more than just strength training, but in terms of endurance training as well. I have a strong endurance background from running marathons. My fastest marathon was a 2:56 at Marine Corps. I had the pleasure of running Boston Marathon and about a dozen more. A 50-mile run, triathlon training, a race Olympic and a half Ironman triathlon. I've had my fair share of endurance training as well. And of course, CrossFit. I was in the thick of CrossFit for roughly, it was 2006-7-ish. I started getting the gist of what it was. Then 2010, I opened my CrossFit gym and I ended up jumping into personal coaching 15. So 5 years or so owning 2 CrossFit gyms, not too bad. All right. Back into talking about progression. Want to clear a few talking points up from the last episode, volume, intensity, and frequency. We're talking about principles, not hard rules. I like to build off of frameworks, concepts, off of foundational information, science-backed information, to then make it pliable to how it works for individual lifestyles, individual bodies, individual time frames that clients can work in. You got a ton of questions that came up from that, just making sure these aren't hard rules. Okay. Principles guide you toward a good starting point. They're meant to get you in the ballpark so you can adjust for all those variables of your body, goals, maybe injuries or your fitness, strength capacity, and ultimately your life. When I say something like 40 to 70 reps per muscle group per session done 2 to 3 times per week, that range comes from research summaries that average across many people. Averages are useful, but they do not erase individual variability. Some people do better on low end with high effort. Others do better with more total work. For me personally, I was always a more total work type person. I think I shared in the last episode some of my strength gains and stuff, which is they're strong, not crazy strong, not powerless strong, but strong for an endurance athlete. Do not think in black and white. 39 reps will not make you shrink. 71 will not wreck you and send you off in injury. The question is not right or wrong. It's how to get closer to your most efficient progress. You can only do this over time through experience, through putting in the work, the reps, the sets. You can also build successful programs outside of these rep ranges when other variables are organized in an intelligent way for the programming you're doing. An example, higher intensity can work with lower volume and vice versa. If recovery and frequency are managed, you're able to tweak those. High intensity, low volume, or maybe lower intensity with high volume. Context matters and overlapping counts. If you're training a muscle group multiple times per week, you do not need to hit the exact per session target every time. Total weekly volume matters. There's that overlap between, say, a bench press trains a chest, front delts, triceps. Rows and deadlifts contribute to overall back volume. Squats give calves a bit of work through plantar flexion under load, trying to make sure that you stay upright. Use your head, count what truly contributes, and then fill in the gaps. This could be with even auxiliary work. A simple way to organize training, we had targets. The volume, we had 40 to 70 reps per muscle group per session. Intensity for strength, about 3/4 of work from 1 to 6 reps with strength, right? With higher rest, say at least 2, but probably more like 3 to 5 minutes, depending on how heavy you're going. Intensity for hypertrophy, that's muscle building, about 3/4 of the work was 6 to 12 reps. I even like that 8 to 12. This is work with heavier and lighter weights, depending on where you're at in that rep range. And then frequency. Train each muscle group definitely once if we're doing body splits, but even 2 or 3 times per week. That volume will help build up those muscle groups, the strength from them. There are so many splits that can fit these routines, 2 or 3 full body days, upper, lower, repeated, upper day, lower day, upper day, lower day. Push, pull, leg days. That's a very favorable sequence to go through. And again, even said back was even not necessarily a 7-day cycle, but a 10-day cycle. So you get through push, pull legs twice each for 10 total days. You're doing amazing then. Choose a structure that fits your week and figure out where the volume needs to be. Some days you could probably go heavier in the gym because you have more time, and other days you might have to get in, hit it hard, and quit it. Now, simple programs, we'll put some in the notes, show notes at the end of this. Example would be more of a strength-focused template. For an upper day, this is a 4-day split. Upper day, and you can pause this, but again, just check the show notes. Bench press 5x5, overhead press 3x6, and rows 3 by, say, 8 to 12 reps. Then we have on Tuesday, we have a lower effort where we do squats or deadlifts 5x5. We do RDLs or front squats 3x6. You can alternate which pair you work in one week to the next. This week, Tuesday's workout, say lower A, then that works on squats and RDLs, whereas the Next Tuesday will be deadlifts and front squats. Perfect, because you're hitting quads and hamstrings, hips in each of those variables. On, say, Thursday, the third day, it would be another upper body. We could do bench press, 5x3, flat dumbbell press, 4x6, and chin-ups or lat pull-downs, 3x8 to 12. And lastly, wrapping this up, we can focus on heavy lifts of doing, say, 5x3 for squat or deadlifts. And your second lift, the RDL and the squat, maybe 4x6. Okay, so a little heavier on the first one, a little bit lighter, more moderate on the second. So again, we'll put those in the show notes that you can make sure that we can get those. Weekly volume lands near the lower end of the recommended range, which is fine for that particular set because it's strength focused in its effort, and the load and the quality of the reps are relatively high. Now, if we go to a different protocol, say hypertrophy, then we can look at, again, a 4-day split, very similar workouts, but we're going to start to vary these because these are going to bring in auxiliary or secondary muscles. We have Monday, we could do a bench press, 4x4 to 6 reps, a row, 3x6 to 8 reps, and inclined dumbbell, chin-ups, triceps, biceps, lateral raises, 3 to 8 sets each of those. So it's going to be a pretty intensive, more, say, bodybuilder type split in a sense where you're going to cover a lot of chest, triceps, delts. Tuesday, we're going to stick with that squat and deadlift. Those are kings. We're going to do 4 sets of 4 to 6 reps. We have leg extensions that fall between 3 sets of 8 to 12, leg curls, the same, and standing calf raises. All right, we're going to do around 4 sets of 6 to 8. If we get into Thursday, we got another upper body workout. We have flat bench, lat pull downs, overhead press, and row. Again, 3x8 to 12. Chest fly, 2x12. Triceps, 2x12. Biceps, 2x12. And a second lower leg. These are going to be subtly different. The first one, leg press instead of squat or deadlift. Different angles for different muscles. 3x8 to 12 again. And that hypertrophy range, RDLs for the glute hamstrings, 12, leg extension, leg curls are 3x12 to 15, and seated calf raises. Again, I will copy and paste those into the show notes for you to easily read. Most of the working sets are going to be in that 6 to 12 range, with a little bit are going to be heavier, and a smaller slice is higher reps. If a muscle lags, add a small amount of specific work for that muscle on the appropriate day. Example being hamstrings. Let's maybe add an extra set or 2 on the RDLs and the leg curls to focus on bringing those up a little bit. What progression really means is we're organizing volume, intensity, and frequency correctly to produce progress. We want incremental progress in 2.5, 5 pound, or 10 pound jumps on the barbell and the dumbbells, and this will ensure that your progress continues. That's literally what it is. Progress needs to match your training age as well. What I mean by that is we have different levels. We have beginners, we have intermediate level, and advanced level lifters. If you're new to the game, a beginner, doesn't matter what age you are, you can always start. Okay. If you haven't lifted weights, start now. Please, your 70-year-old self will thank you. Add a small amount of load workout to workout on your main lifts, if again for a beginner. So upping it by 2.5 plates or 5 pound plates as you go, week in and week out. If your gym lacks those smaller plates, consider just bringing your own pair. You could literally go and buy 2.5 pound plates, or maybe every other week you'll add more weight just to make sure that you move up in a timely manner. So 2-week increments of, okay, this week I'm going to do, say, 100 pounds. Next week I'm going to do 110, or so, 2 weeks from now. That could work. And that provides steady progress for you to keep moving forward. Intermediate. We've got 2 practical workout routines here. Number 1 is a linear step loading for compound movements. The example being 3 sets of 6 to 8 range. In your first week, you'll choose a way that you can manage for that 3 to 8 reps without a spotter. All right. Or if you need a spotter, you can always use the bench in various ways to apply the right type of load and not get hurt. Okay. Then on your last set, you'll approach near failure. Week 2, you do the same weight. Maybe it's 3 by 7 with a slightly higher load. Maybe add those 2.5s or 5s. In week 3, the same weight, but 3 by 6 and heavier than the load at 7s. And then you have a deload week. Okay. So we can build up and working, starting with the same weight in your first reps and then working higher up in the latter part of it. Deload would just be doing 1 less set to keep it fresh. Then you're going to start over on week 5 and work on hitting 8 with heavier weights. So say you started at 100 on that first week and you worked up to 105 on week 2, 110 on week 3, and then week 4 was back to 100. Then on week 5, we could try 115 to 120, and your body should be able to handle that. Now, the second scheme of doing this or intermediate is a double progression for isolation work. What I mean by that is set of rep range, for example, 3 sets of 12 to 15. You're going to keep the load steady until you can hit 15 reps on all 3 sets. That means then once you can achieve that, you will drop back down to sets of 12 and with a heavier load. This makes the most sense for a lot of people. This is the way I like to do it with my clients. Okay. 3 sets of 12 to 15 or 8 to 12. I like the 8 to 12 range the most. If you're at 12 reps, that means that you can and should go heavier. If you're at 8 reps, you should stay there. If you're at 6 reps, then on the second or third set, you're going to lessen it. You're going to make it easier for you. And then again, the 4th week or maybe 5th week, you do a deload week and you keep this process going. Now, for advanced lifters, you're chasing a small progression. That is, you're fighting for whatever you can get your hands on. Now, you can certainly use AMRAPs as many rounds as possible or test your true 1 rep max on key lifts every 6 to 12 weeks. AMRAP saying, okay, I'm going to deadlift 225 or 315 or whatever for as many reps as I can to be a test in how much I can lift and see progression that way. Or obviously the 1 rep max, last time I deadlifted 375 and this time I deadlifted 405. Great progress. As you test, if you feel beat up, then you need to do a deload week. Okay. If you're feeling fine but stuck, you add a little bit more targeted volume on those lifts, maybe an extra set or 2. And if your technique is breaking down, we need to focus on practicing quality before adding more work, meaning you drop the weight down to refine technique because technique's going to win and keep you injury-free, which is the most important thing. You'll be testing every 2 to 3 months for these things. Are you feeling beat up? Is everything fine, but you're stuck? And is your technique working or not? When your session volume hits the upper limit of your recovery, consider adding a training day and spreading the work out. So meaning that once you are at a high volume of workload, you may consider adding another day or, again, breaking it up in a way that allows you to maintain progress. Now, periodization models that work, there is no best model. Periodization is a tool that builds you up. I was explaining this to Levi today. He was asking questions. He's my oldest, and he's really grown an interest in this. I don't know if he's been listening to my podcast or not, but he certainly sees me doing this every single day with my clients, working out myself, of figuring out periodization. We dig yourself deeper in a hole, in a sense, and then pull yourself out of it, which is important. So 3, 4, 5 weeks of making volume higher, intensity harder, more total volume of work done in that time frame, and then have a week or two where you take it back and rest. And remember, fitness is lost over a long time, okay? Meaning that even if you took 2 weeks off, you're still fine. We talked about that last time. Your fatigue and fitness ratio are going to be impacted, okay? We need to manage that fatigue level to keep fitness going up. One form of periodization is block periodization. This is really hypertrophy or muscle building based. It's about a 6-week time frame where you're going to build from 40 reps on week 1 through week 6. You're doing 70 reps per session 3 times a week, leaving 1 to 2 reps in the tank on your final set. This allows for you to spend 6 solid weeks building and basically wearing down your body and your muscles and breaking them down with more volume and strength and weights and all to then rebuild. Now, if it's really hard and you're trying to do even a shorter time of intensifying this, you could drop the rep range to, say, 4 weeks and do 40 to 50 reps per session, 2 or 3 times a week, but you're going to really train close to failure. 1, maybe 2 reps left in reserve. And then if we have to do, say, a 2-week taper to figure out what happens with your new test, this would be a great time to do it. So you do the 6 weeks and then maybe 2-week. One is a taper where you cut the volume down by a third or even 2/3 of normal, but you keep the load similar or maybe slightly lighter. Again, instead of doing, say, 70 reps, you're doing, a third less. Is going to be back to 40. But keep the weights similar to where it was. So you're still working on heavy weights, just going to drop down the actual volume. And then week 2 would be testing your new strength with 1 rep maxes or as many reps as possible. Say that I'm going to deadlift 315 for as many sets this time, and the next time I'm going to deadlift 335 as an example, as many reps as I can to see where strength is at. Now there's also the daily undulating periodization. This is for strength base, and this is where you're going to have a hypertrophy phase that is more 6 to 12 reps. You're going to have a power phase of 1 to 3 reps. That's more 75 to 90% of your 1 rep max. And then you have a strength that is more 1 to 6, but this is more multiple sets for what we'd say is heavy exposure to lifting the weight. Now, again, so we have hypertrophy, power, and strength in each of those days to cycle through different movement patterns, okay? This one you have to have a little bit more of a focused effort on. Most people, if you're really into strength training, the daily undulating periodization is going to work really well. The block periodization is very typical, very common, and has been around for decades. How we taper, again, it's a 1 to 2 weeks. We're cutting the volume down to a third or 2/3 normal. The intensity is going to maintain or drop just maybe 5 to 10% less, but we're just going to do less sets. And the schedule, do light singles at 70-80% earlier in the week, then take 1 to 3 days off before testing or competing. That's a proper taper with basically anything that you're doing exercise-wise. You always want to have light efforts at best a couple days beforehand to be fresh. Just reminding, we don't want to max out every week. We're training to build strength over time, and the plan, when it's applicable, will show the results in time. Bringing this all together, let's use principles, not rigid rules. Okay. These are principles, concepts that you can apply into your training. Count overlap and total weekly volume. Progress with small, consistent steps that match your training age. Choose a periodization approach that fits your timeline. Again, most people are going to be easy to do that block periodization, doing 4, 5, 6 weeks of intensity and volume building with 1 to 2 weeks of deloads. And definitely deload. Rest is when the body repairs itself, recovers. Now, we've covered a lot of ground. There's a lot of numbers here. Refer to the show notes. This is probably the most dense effort of the series here. We'll try and keep it lighter as we go. But once you understand the periodization and the rep ranges and all, then it gets a lot easier. Next, we'll talk about exercise selection, how to choose the right movements to get the most out of each session. Now, as we wrap up, if you've been wanting to take better care of your health, but don't know where to start, so many guys finally get, unfortunately, hit up across the head by a life event, a chronic illness, a picture they didn't like what they saw, or finally they didn't want to have a midlife crisis, especially around their health. And then consider this. I've got 30 tips in 30 days. It's a series, a free email. It gives you simple, actionable, easy tips to implement and improve your nutrition, fitness, your overall lifestyles. There's easy, tasty recipes in there, simple workouts, and tricks that I use with my clients every day. You'll eat smarter, move better, and build small daily routines that actually last. It's just clear steps you can put into work right away. To join that, you'll type in go.brianparana.com/30 days. Again, that'll be in the show notes along with the workouts that I talked about. Thank you for listening today to Driven for Health. If this episode really helped with understanding more structure on exercise and reps and sets, then share it. Consider telling your friend about this. Don't keep it a secret. There's so many good things that I'm trying to provide here in all of these episodes. This being episode 19 already. I can't believe it. I appreciate you in this journey and all the fun things. Comment below or send me an email at brian@brianparana.com on what other topics you'd love me to cover, and I will get to it. I'm Coach Brian Parana signing off. Stay consistent, strong, and I'll see you in the next episode.